Thank you very much. Thanks for your patience. I'm sorry about that IT issue, and I'm assured that we are broadcasting live stream. So, and apologies for the issues. Thank you very much. Thanks for your patience. I'm sorry about that IT issue, and I'm assured that people we are broadcasting live stream. So, recording and apologies. Thank you very much. Thanks for your patience. I'm sorry about to open the meeting with IT issue, and I'm assured that we are broadcasting live stream. So, recording and apologies. Thank you very much. Thanks for your patience. I'm sorry about to open the meeting with IT issue, and I'm assured that we are broadcasting live stream. So,
meet in this chamber, Father, we pray that you'll be
with us,
that you'll be
the meeting with
the decisions we make today will be meet in this chamber, Father, we pray that you'll be with us, that you'll be the decisions we make today will be meet in this chamber, Father, we pray that you'll be with us, that you'll be the decisions we make today will be meet in this chamber, Father, we pray that you'll be with us,
as follows: Councillor Tony Wilson, Darren Furness, and Councillor Richard Apologies are as follows: Councillor Tony Wilson, Darren Furness, and Councillor Richard Apologies are as follows: Councillor Tony Wilson, Darren Furness, and Councillor Richard Apologies are as follows: Councillor
Declarations of interest. The monitoring officer has given advice. Are there any declarations of interest in the business before council today? Councillor Graves, please. Thank you. Councillor Greenhill.
Chair, just like to go as a member of the Council, taking on best practice to apply that to the 9 to 10.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
the sound up.
The mics aren't being turned on, that's why they're not hearing us speak. They're still green when we speak. They need to be activated.
Yeah.
Councillor Burford. Yeah.
Councillor Burford, please. No,
Just to say that I'm a member of Derbyshire Dales District Council.
Thank you. Councillor Kinsella.
Yeah, I'm a member of, so it's item 10, and I'm a member of Amber Valley Borough Council.
Thank you. Councillor Price. Councillor Reid.
Councillor for North East Derbyshire for item 10.
Councillor Wilton.
I'm a South Derbyshire District Councillor as well as County Councillor. Thank you.
Councillor Monkman.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm a member of Amber Valley Borough Council, so it's item 10 as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood. Thank you. Councillor Snowden.
Chair, I'm a member of Chesterfield Borough Council.
Thank you. Councillor Dale.
Member of North East Derbyshire District Council. Can we just assume for ease that those of us who've already registered the interests in our register of interests, it's taken as read? Is it easier to just do that, Chair? We'll have to hear it while we want.
There are two left, so we'll take them as soon as we start. But Councillor Hart.
Can I register any of those who haven't declared themselves as well, then,
okay.
just for ease?
Is that? Councillor Hobson's just called. Councillor George. Thank you. Keep going up. Councillor Ford. Yes, sorry.
Member of South Derbyshire District Council.
Thank you.
As before, Harry Wash.
Councillor Somerville. Thank you. Are we done? Oh, Councillor McGuinness. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ooh, good point. Spouses?
So any spouse, yes.
Yes, please, Mr. Bull, Councillor Bull. Are we going to go through all spouses? Yeah. Councillor Gourlay.
Hi, yes, I'm on High Peak Borough Council.
And Councillor Harvey.
Atwell Parish Council.
Thank you. So, we don't. Right. Councillor Matthews.
I am a councillor for South Normanton Parish Council.
Sorry, we don't need to go down to parish councils, but thank you, Councillor. Right.
Yeah. So Councillor Smith is indicating.
Councillor Smith.
On the live streams, sorry.
The red light to come on, because what they're doing is speaking when the green light is activated, before it's activated. It won't be picked up because the live stream will come from the microphone. So you can just ask them to make sure that they just wait for their mic to be activated.
Apparently, with the microphones, please can you wait until your device is showing red before you speak. If it's showing green, this is probably causing the hiccups. Thank you. Okay, Chairman's announcements. I was going to start with IT. We've covered a lot of IT. Hopefully, it's going to settle down and work for us. As you're aware, the meeting will be live streamed and available for subsequent playback through the Council's website and YouTube channel. You should be aware that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during the webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy. If any member of the public has concerns about this, please speak to a member of staff. Please ensure that mobile phones and IT equipment are set to silent. Please speak clearly into the microphones when they're red, so that both councillors and members of the public can hear you, and a reminder that the voting buttons are being used. Please press the button once to request to speak and once at the end of your speech. No need to press it again. Please ask for assistance if needed. Unfortunately, since we last met, I have been informed of the death of former County Councillor Roland Hosker, who represented the Long Eaton Division between 1989 and 2017. I'm sure that everyone here will join with me in passing on our condolences to his family. And before we keep a silence, I would ask Councillor Greenhalgh to speak. Thank you.
So it's with great sadness that I rise to pay tribute to former colleague and a man that gave so much to this chamber and the people of Derbyshire, Roland. Roland was a respected and familiar presence here at County Hall. As the Chair said, was elected in 1989 to represent the Long Eaton Division. He served Derbyshire County Council with distinction for 28 years. Over those decades, he became a cornerstone of authority, always diligent, always prepared, and always guided by a deep sense of public duty. He served on many committees and took substantial responsibility, including the chair of the Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service Authority and vice chair of the Education Committee, roles he carried out with skill and integrity. Roland was a tireless advocate of children and young people, and especially those with educational needs and disabilities. He never stopped pushing for better services, better support and better outcomes for some of the most vulnerable members of our community. But for many of us, Roland's legacy is not just measured in the roles he held or the policies he helped shape, it's measured in how he treated people. I remember personally what it was like arriving here as a newly elected councillor, as many in the chamber probably will. There's always a certain level of anxiety when you first walk through those doors, unsure on what to expect or how you'll find this place and your place in it. But Roland, through already a long service and experience, he was really warm, welcoming and kind. He made time for a friendly word, practical advice and helped me feel like I belong here. It's something I've never forgotten and something I know many others experience too. That was Roland, principled, compassionate and generous with both his time and wisdom. In addition to serving here at the county, he also served on Irish Borough Council from 91 to 2011 and rising to become the deputy leader. His dedication to his constituents, both borough and county, were unwavering, and he was a true labour and cooperative stalwart, deeply rooted in his values, always focused on delivering for the ordinary person. In retirement, Roland embraced his new and joyful role, that of a granddad. It was a role he adored and brought him immense happiness. It's comforting to know that after many years of serving others, he had time to enjoy the simple pleasures of family life. So to Roland's family, this group and hopefully all in the chamber extend our heartfelt condolences. Please for them to know that his contributions to this council and the communities of Erewash and Derbyshire will not be forgotten. Roland was a community champion, a man of great integrity and a thoroughly decent human being who made a difference, not just to policy, but to people. We mourn his loss and we honour his legacy. Thank you, Roland.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hart, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Really, I can't add much more to what Councillor Greenhouse just said. My term at Derbyshire County Council, but particularly Erewash Borough Council, overlapped Roland's work at the Borough Council. And I will say with Roland, he was one of the persons, he was very, very committed to the Labour cause. But when he left the chamber, unlike some, you could have a really nice conversation with him. He was a gentleman, very, very nice. He was actually, his daughter was on Erewash Borough Council for a time with him. So we got, father and daughter on the same council. So as I say, mine overlapped and I can't add any more. He was a gentleman. He worked hard for his constituents. And as I say, I can't add because I think you've covered every aspect of it, but it was a real gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can I ask that all those who are able, if you could stand in tribute to... Thank you. A few announcements. Yesterday marked 2 months since this new council was inducted. I'm sure I can speak for all those new to the role that this time has been something of a whirlwind. There's been induction, training, appointments to office and the numerous outside bodies, not forgetting our most important role as councillors of supporting and representing the public. I would like to thank residents for their support and understanding as we become established in our roles. If anyone has not been responded to on an issue they have raised, please can I ask that you repeat the request in case it has been missed. Thank you. My first engagement as civic chairman was to attend Tissington Well dressings, a lovely traditional Derbyshire village occasion which was enjoyed by my whole family. There have been 2 events at Derby Cathedral which were very special to attend. It is true that there are benches for the county and civic chairs, but as yet they have not made me sit there. On Sunday, I was honoured to take part in the Christ pilgrimage and lay a wreath at the Worcestershire and Sherwood Foresters Memorial. The civic team are busy organising the civic service. This is at 3 p.m. on the 20th of July at Tideswell. Can I encourage councillors to attend and please reply to the civic office if you haven't yet. Thank you. Moving on to the minutes. Item 5 is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of May. Due to the recording, unfortunately, not working at the last meeting, the responses to member questions are a little briefer than we're used to. We apologise for that. With that in mind, I would like to move, there's a piece I need to add in. We recognise that some members would like their supplementary question published, and we can make arrangements for this to happen. Sorry. With that in mind, I would like to move that these minutes are approved, please. Thank you. Sorry.
So you need to move and second it first before you take out.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Graves. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rini, thank you. Right. I'd like to call on Councillor Forden, please.
But before we approve the minutes, can I just check with regards to what you're saying is the case? Before the meeting occurred, we'd already been, those of us who had tabled questions had been approached asking us to withdraw them, to which I objected at the time. If I understand what you've just said earlier regarding technology, the meeting we are holding now, the only record there will be is if the recording works. Not one member of staff in the chamber now is taking minutes, if I understood what you said correctly. I've raised this with the head of Democratic Services and with the chief executive, and I really think it's unsatisfactory that the minutes don't record that there was an IT failure. The minutes don't record that a supplementary question was asked and an answer was given. It doesn't have to give the detail. It doesn't record that we're going to be amending the answers subsequently in the information that we've now been asked to submit. It doesn't record that the minutes were published before those of us who asked questions were approached and asked to give the question itself. So I guess I object to the minutes as they stand. They don't reflect what occurred in the meeting. It doesn't reflect that the IT failed. And I think I want clarification as to whether or not anyone is actually taking minutes, or are we relying on a recording? The reason the recording is so significant is because when Councillor Clark, as leader of the Labour group, raised the issue that the recording was failing, she was dismissed with a wave of the hand and told, oh, the recording is happening anyway, regardless. It now turns out that was not based on evidence and was incorrect. So I ask again, before we approve these minutes, they don't record what happened in the meeting. So I don't think we can approve them. And is anyone taking minutes, or are we relying on a recording that only works if a red light comes on?
Councillor Reid.
Can I just say, as the cabinet member for CST, this is something that right after that meeting I addressed, and I need to move this, otherwise I'm not standing up properly, and raised again with officers to make sure that we're not just relying on the YouTube feed, that we are actually having a separate recording if we're looking for accuracy of minutes. And I did challenge officers on whether the minutes we actually had were accurate, because it was quite clearly that they weren't. So, heard, addressed, and for future, there will be, and my understanding is there are different members of staff actually taking notes and minutes to make sure that we're not just relying on technology, which we know that relying on technology as the only source of an answer is a failure point. So we are making sure that we are taking minutes at the same time. Is that at least somewhat satisfactory? But look, I have, as a cabinet member, had this argument. I don't agree that currently as they stand, they are accurate or reflect the current AGM. And that is my position as well.
Councillor Graves, please.
I don't think we should exclude the fact that she does do that. They might not be word for word, but they are notes of the minutes.
I'm just going to ask the Director of Legal and Democratic Services to make a statement as well.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'm not going to add to the comments that have been made by the members, but just from a legal perspective, just to be clear that the minutes do not need to reflect everything that was said at the meeting. So from a legal perspective, I am satisfied and I'm able to advise council that they are factually accurate. They are not as fulsome and as detailed as we would usually include, and that is as a result of the fact that the recording did fail. So we can't provide a verbatim record of the supplementary question that was asked and the answer that was given. What we are proposing, that the Chair's mentioned in opening, is that there is a separate supplementary document that's published on the same page as the agenda and the minutes. We will endeavour to update that. So any member that specifically would require wording added to that, we will absolutely address that, but it won't be recorded in the minutes of this particular meeting. So hopefully that's helpful, Chair.
Thank you for that, and I hope this goes some way to meeting your concerns, Councillor Fordham. And could we move to the vote, please? Oh. Oh, well. More IT issues, but yeah, if we can. Anyway, the motion's carried, and your concerns have been recognised, and hopefully will be addressed in the future. Thank you. Moving on to item 6 is a report of the Leader of the Council and members' questions on the report. Councillor Graves, please.
Oh, right, it's working now. Thank you. Excellent. Very interesting that such a long debate over the minutes. Not had that before. Okay, my report today. I'm pleased to report that MCA is now gearing up, and my Cabinet and I are fully engaged, ensuring that Derbyshire is properly and fully represented. Also that together with Councillor Hill, we met up with JCB to discuss possible options of the Pothole Pro machine. We were impressed not only with the quality of the equipment, but also the productivity, giving better repairs and fewer operatives taking less time. Ideal under our council efficiency drive. I have met with the Unionson rep and can assure our staff that I will be having regular meetings with them. Finally, just to notify that the council that I have replaced the cabinet support role for SEND with Councillor Mabbott replacing Councillor Gates. Thank you.
Are there any questions that directly relate to the Leader's report? Councillor Major, please.
I was pleased the Leader mentioned SEND provision. We good? Great. I thank the Leader for mentioning SEND provision. I keep noting with interest articles that are coming out in the press and other places about the government potentially looking at overprescribing of SEND provision and looking at loosening the number of people that would be eligible for it, or children that would be eligible for it. I also note Nigel Farage's comments about it being overdiagnosed, and think it would be an opportune time for the Leader to express his views on if SEND provision is overdiagnosed or not, and if he agrees with the Labour government.
Councillor Graves.
Obviously, I think that question went a little bit further than the fact that we've just changed who's doing the cabinet support role. However, I'm quite happy to answer the question. We are very committed to the SEND process, and we are committed to making sure that everybody that has a HCP does get one, and we are working very hard to ensure that happens.
Councillor Dale, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just heartening to hear about the work with EMCA and getting fully engaged with that agenda. I just wanted to highlight that my colleagues over in Nottinghamshire Conservatives group have put forward a motion there calling on the new Labour Mayor to, well, not new anymore, but the Labour Mayor to reduce the bus fare cap from £3 to £2. I just wondered whether this council might join that lobbying effort to try and get the elected mayor for the region to improve bus services in the area by reducing that fare. Thank you, Chair.
I'm not sure that relates to your report, but do you want to reply, Councillor Graves?
Of course I do, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I didn't know about this, and I'm glad that you're highlighting something that the Conservatives are doing. It's very pleasing to hear that. It is definitely something that I will consider, and we will have a discussion in our group. But thank you for highlighting it for me.
Thank you. Right, next item, 7, is public questions. They're printed on page 15 to 20. Questions and answers have been circulated around the room and will be taken as read. We have a number of members of the public present. Excuse me, if you'll let me finish my sentence, Councillor Major. As bad as my wife. So, yes, we have a question from, not councillor, Mr. J. Geddes, and I'd like to call you forward to ask you a supplementary question. Thank you.
Yes, the gentleman's come a long way to ask a question. OK, he's getting to ask a supplementary question, but I think it's probably disrespectful of residents who've gone to the trouble to ask questions, come all this way, to not allow them to read out at least their initial question. I do think it's disrespectful. I get the reason why you do it to members, but I think it should. I don't think we should be treating the public in that way.
I apologise if you have expected to read your question out, but I'm afraid it is the policy of this administration. But you're welcome to investigate the matter further with a supplementary question. So please take that opportunity. The one on your right.
Right, I'm John Geddes, here on behalf of Winchester Parish Council. The issue at stake is the Highways Department offering itself luxuriant amounts of time in which to do road repairs. In our case, we were faced with a 74-day road closure, which boiled down to 7 days of work and 67 days on which the road was advertised as closed, but open. That's the main road through our village. When the road is closed, the bus doesn't run. Telling people there are going to be 74 days when the road might be closed is not information. If you're a bus user, you need to know which specific days. Derbyshire wasn't saying that until, especially for me in our one occasion, I was given those 7 days because I was threatening a complaint to the local government ombudsman. The norm is to have this long exposure of period when people don't know whether the road is closed or not. This council has spent, or is spending, £47 million of central government money to try and encourage people to use bus services. And then it's undermining all of it by saying, guess which days it's running on and guess which it's not. When your bus runs every 2 hours, 20 minutes, which is what we have in Winchester, a missing bus is a lost job, it's a missed medical appointment. Okay, I've got my question.
So we're just waiting for the supplementary.
No, my question is, does the council not understand the impact, or does it not care?
Thank you, Mr. Geddes.
Thank you for travelling here today to bring your question and sending it in prior and spending the time to bring it to us. Obviously, we care about that, and our priority is repairing the road so that the bus service can perform at its full capacity. And I hear what you say, and I'll definitely be working with the officers to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Question 2 is from Dr. Terry, and the question is written and a written response is given. I'll take that as read, as with question 3 from Mr. Porter. Question 4 from Ms. C. Grocott. And we're moving on to question 5 from Mr. K. Barrow. And do you have a supplementary question? Please, as we've been reminded, can you make it a question? Thank you. Councillor Ford, point of order.
Really does not feel right. We've been given these questions at the start of the meeting. There are some, I think, 19 pages here. None of us in the opposition groups have had a chance to read these. The members of the public are being asked supplementaries. That simply is a question out of context. The Constitution, as I understand it, has not been changed. The meeting is tomorrow. And if you wish to change the Constitution, at the moment is the public have the right to ask the question in public. It's not submitted in a public way. It's not put it in writing and a written response will be given. It is ask the question in public. Now, you may stretch that to mean asking is writing, but the truth is they're different. I believe the public has the right to ask their question. The portfolio holder is then incumbent upon them to give an answer, not for someone to write it and it be published, but an answer to be given, not presented. I really think we've got this the wrong way around and you need to reconsider.
I'm advised that the Constitution as drafted allows this to happen, and the thinking is that the written questions are there and it gives the questioner an opportunity to further investigate the issue. So with that in mind, I ask Councillor Wood to respond, please.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, a supplementary question, please.
Having only been provided with a written answer to my question literally minutes before this meeting started, I can see that my question has not been answered. Would this council support a bus franchising pilot for rural areas in Derbyshire, as you are key members of the East Midlands Combined Council Authority Mayor's Transport Committee, and because surveys of rural populations have found that improving transport links would make the biggest difference to their lives, especially so for people on lower incomes? Thank you.
Councillor Wood, please.
Thank you, Mr. Barrow, for travelling here today. I believe your question was answered in that we will not have the powers when they go to EMCA. However, you quite rightly point out that myself and, in fact, Councillor Hill are to be on the EMCA Transport Committee, of which we have not yet been to a meeting. So you can rest assured we will absolutely be doing our level best as a constituent authority and as members of that committee to press for the best possible services for Derbyshire, which is unusual in its rural situation. In fact, I had discussions only yesterday with my director to see if there was any possibility of preparing ideas for that. Now, I understand that the movement of services as they are still fixed, but that didn't stop me giving the 50 questions, as I'm prone to do, to my director to see what we can do to prepare to ensure that especially rural services can be dealt with innovatively and better under EMCA. You can rest assured we will defend that corner absolutely vehemently. Thank you.
Councillor Burfoot, please.
Thank you. Can I just reiterate what Councillor Fordham said, that There is absolutely no way that we could have read all these number of pages before this meeting began. So I think that was completely out of order, to be honest. But the other thing is, can you reassure me that the people who asked the questions up to number 4, including Ms. Grocott, have you checked that they're not here?
Sorry, to address your first point, yeah, we have checked whether questions are present and wish to ask. The approach that has been taken is to allow more time. If you just had an oral response, there'd be no record of it, and this allows a supplementary question to interrogate the issues further. So that's the approach that's been taken. The issue you're asking about, the advance notice, there is some advance notice. If it was an oral answer, you would get no advance notice, and I advise that that is, should be to the advantage of the questioner. So I'm going to move on now to question 6. Ms. M. May, if you'd like to ask a supplementary question, please.
Malcolm May, Matlock Community Land Trust. So does the question that I've received mean that the car park and playing field will be sold for housing as we've been led to believe? And can we discuss further with the council a range of alternatives that Matlock Community Land Trust has in relation to what the community of Matlock Bank needs?
Councillor Rini, please.
Yes, certainly we can hold further discussions. Actually, the original question was, will we review, the previous administration's decision? And the very fact that we came to meet you, see the site, led to further questions and looking at all options. So what's actually transpired since is further technical legal questions have been triggered by our questions, and I'm waiting for the officer to come back to us. So no firm decision's been taken at all until we've clarified certain legal aspects, and of course we'll keep you in the loop. So no, there's no firm decision sold for housing at this time. Yeah, there'll be open dialogue. As I say, we're clearing up technical points that's been raised. Once we've got those, we'll be in a better position to make a fair, a fair decision for everybody.
Can I just ask you, for an actual meeting with the car park, which is very, very different from the previous administration. It was where our questions and our needs were just ignored. So whatever you decide, thank you for the response you took.
We enjoyed the visit. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Going to, question 7. Question 7 from Ms. Robinson will take as read. Question 8 from Ms. L. Hopkinson is, yes, I understand you were supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Lisa Hopkinson, and my question related to the abolition of the Climate Change, Biodiversity and Carbon Reduction Committee, which was one of the Council's first actions. And my question related to the climate priorities, the previous climate priorities, and whether the Council still supports those priorities and what measures they're proposing to deliver them. And I thank Councillor Wood for her response, which says that the Council is still committed to delivering and supporting projects, including energy efficiency of council building, generation and use of clean energy, working with partners to deliver projects to make homes more energy efficient and promote the use of public transport and active travel and reduce resource use. She also goes on to say that they're also leading the preparation of the local nature recovery strategy. They're developing a Heartwood community forest, and they're developing a new strategy to replace DCC's climate change strategy, which expires at the end of this year. So my supplementary question is, although it's very good to hear that the new council supports the climate priorities of improving energy efficiency of buildings, supporting renewable energy, supporting green travel and public transport, reducing resource use and waste, all with the intention of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And it's also good that a new climate strategy is being developed to be considered by the Cabinet later this year. When would she expect a public consultation on the draft, and will the new one be in place before the old one expires? Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you for travelling here today, Ms Hopkinson, and thank you for your commentary on my answers. However, I do seek to correct you on your deductions that we were supporting climate change activities, renewable energy, and reduction of carbon. We take a common sense approach on value for money measures, which quite sensibly and reasonably includes supporting biodiversity, net gain, maximising the use of our natural capital, natural assets for health, well-being, education and other activities. And all that can be done without calling things an ideological term like climate change. So I am working with the officers to renew the policies, as you've described, along the lines of the priorities that I've described for our constituents. And I will seek advice from officers on whether that process does or does not involve a public consultation, and we'll get back to you afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Wood's answered the question. I'm sorry. Sorry, no, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Question 9 was from Ms Brazil, taken as read. Question 10 from H Kinsella, taken as read. Question 11 from M Neville, taken as read. Question 12 from D Holden, taken as read. Moving to question 13 from J Wright. Have you a supplementary question, please?
I do. Thank you. And just to note, there's no R in my surname. It's been misspelled. My question was about how the council is seeking to protect the businesses and people of Derbyshire against the impact of extreme weather events. And I'm pleased to read in the written response about a number of ways in which it's intending to do that. So my supplementary question is this. Taking note that in the case of climate breakdown, as with many other things, prevention is better than cure, and the fact that repeated public surveys show that there is strong public support for taking robust action to address climate breakdown, referencing also the new environment strategy, which Councillor Wood referred to just now, my question is whether or not there will be an explicit intention within that strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which are the cause of climate breakdown, or whether, alternatively, the council, the new administration of the council, wishes to freeload on the back of efforts taken elsewhere to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and so reduce the impact of global warming and climate breakdown.
Councillor Wood. Thank you. Councillor Wood.
I think I can confidently say that we will not be putting in any strategies, explicit measures to reduce greenhouse gases. However, we obviously will be seeking to continue strategies along the lines I described in the previous answer, regarding biodiversity, nature strategy, which have multiple benefits, as you know. We will also be seeking energy efficiency savings because that helps people in their own homes. It helps save money. We are also mindful of, and this was in one of the other answers that the person wasn't here to ask a supplementary, we're also very mindful of pollution from numerous activities. So I very much support clean energy, some of which may be longer term than that which is currently being used. But that is certainly will be among the priorities in our strategies going forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Question 14 is the final public question from G. Blair, and we'll take that as read. So moving on to item 9 is the performance and budget monitoring outturn for 2024-25. Could I have a proposer, please?
Sorry, Chair, I've missed the petitions.
I thought we'd got them.
Yes, you still need to just
Item 8 is petitions, which I've struck out, so no petitions have been received. Item 9 is the performance and budget monitoring outturn for 2024-25. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Lawson to introduce and move the report, please.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to provide an overview report for the performance and budget monitoring outturn for 2024-25 as at Q4, 31st of March 25, which is detailed on pages 21 to 158. The report provides information on performance against the 2024-25 Council Plan and financial performance against the 2024-25 Revenue Budget and Savings Plan. Council Plan performance, the Council Plan set out 33 strategic objectives and performance against the expected progress up to the 31st of March, showed that 70% have been completed or show good progress and outcomes, and 30%, that's 10 strategic objects, require review. In support of the strategic objects, 39 key measures were identified and monitored. The latest data available at 31st of March showed that there are 24 measures where targets could be set.
Oh, I'm sorry, I agree. We are just struggling to hear Councillor Lawson. Perhaps if you could move centrally over your microphone. Or...
Shall I pick it up? Shall I sit down? Yeah. No, it might be a bit better.
Yeah, please.
Okay. There are a range of reasons for the 10 strategic objectives requiring review, including that the challenges being addressed are complex, the impact of increased service demand and pressure on budgets and capacity, as well as delays to government funding and challenges to government policy. Further detail regarding achievements and key challenges are set out in section 2 below. Just turning to finance, as at the 31st of March 2025, the Council had a net actual underspend, I'll repeat that, underspend, of 0.582 million, which is compared to a projection as at Q3 of an overspend of 25.975 million. That's against the approved revenue budget for 24-25, obviously. The movement from the forecast overspend at Q3 to the actual underspend at year end is due to a combination of factors across different departments, including savings from holding vacancies and receipts of additional income. Also, there were significant savings in corporate budgets. One of these was that there was no need to use all of the contingency budgets to cover the pay award, as the actual pay award increase was lower than anticipated when the budget was first set. There was also a reduction in expenditure relating to the minimum revenue provision, MRP, following a change in the basis of calculation. This change in MRP policy was approved at full council on the 12th of February 2020. Departments were able to deliver the majority of the planned savings built in the budget for 2024-25. However, the additional savings and income achieved during the year were offset by overspends in two key areas in adult social care and children's social care services, where increasing demand and cost pressures resulted in actual expenditure for these services being significantly more than budget. A summary of financial performance for each of the portfolio areas is included below and in more detail in appendices 3 to 10 of the report. The outturn underspend position of 0.582 million, which is 0.08%, 0.08%, I beg your pardon, of the total budget, does not take into account any requests to carry forward commitments. There are requests to carry forward a total of 3.319 million of commitments. If the requests are approved, then this would give a net overspend position for the year end of 2.737 million, or 0.4% overspend. These are considered in paragraphs 4.26 to 4.29 of the report. Just to give a bit more detail, there were significant achievements during 24-25 across a wide range of services. Notably, the council awarded 19,990 crisis payments, totaling over 1.6 million to support families in need via the Derbyshire Discretionary Fund. Also provided safe, stable homes for over 1,000 children in our care and helped more return to live with their families. Supported over 23,500 people to live independently for as long as possible, ensuring they remain part of their local community, and also delivered the 120 million Highways Investment Programme, supporting the maintenance and improvement of over 3,380 miles of roads. Key challenges for the council in delivering the council plan have included the local area partnership SEND inspection in September 24, which found substantial improvements were needed across the partnership. A clear and robust impact and action plan has been developed, which will support improvements in this service area, including improving the proportion of new education, health and care plans issued within timescale. Recruitment and retention challenges for social workers and occupational therapists continue to put pressure on adult social care services and impacts waiting lists. A pilot of a digital care and support planning tool to reduce administrative time is now being rolled out to free up time to deliver services. Volatile weather conditions, in particular named storms, during 23 and 24 had a damaging impact on the road condition, requiring considerable work during 24-25. A thorough review of preventative work streams has led to carriageway defect response being categorised into 3 distinct types. This has allowed significant progress in addressing the number of high priority outstanding defects by ensuring the right fix first time. The revenue outturn for 24-25, as I mentioned earlier, is 0.582 million underspend. This does not include forward requests of 3.3 million. These requests were formally presented and approved by Cabinet on the 3rd of July. The net actual underspend of 0.582 million is a significant improvement on the 25.975 forecast overspend at Q3 against the approved revenue budget for 24-25. Just to highlight some of the key variances for that, from that projected outturn, there were several. There was reduced spend on domiciliary care packages of 3.1 million, increased spend in early help and safeguarding placements of 1.2 million, home to school transport cost forecasts as a result of year-end credit position changes, 2.5 million, Network North grant used 1.5 million, mild winter provision released of 0.9 million, legal costs, that's salary and non-salary, lower than forecast of 1.4 million. The impact of technical change to MRP that I referred to earlier, MRP policy that was voted in February was a positive 10.7 million. That's a 10.7 million benefit. Net interest earned and payable forecast change of 1.1 million. The cumulative deficit on the dedicated schools grant stands at 45 million, largely due to the costs of the high needs block. This deficit is subject to a statutory override, which will now run until March 2028, that's an extension from March 26, authorising the council to maintain this deficit balance outside of its reported revenue position. However, this balance represents a growing risk to the council, in common with most other upper tier councils. The revenue budget for 25-26 was set in February at 769.845 million, including 37.499 million of savings to be delivered, of which 27.415 million was ongoing and 10.084 million were one-off. The report refers to the use of reserves during the financial year. The year-end balance of the general reserve is 39 million, as at the 31st of March 25, which is 5% of the County Council's net budget. The appendix to the report provides details of earmarked reserves. I therefore move to accept the recommendations at 7.1 A to D, and I'll list them, which are: the council notes that the council plan performance and revenue outturn position for 2024-25. B, notes the cumulative deficit on the dedicated schools grant at the 31st of March 25 as set out in paragraph 2.40. C, notes the position on the general and earmarked reserves. And D, notes the carry forward of commitments as listed in paragraphs 2.29. Okay.
I'll allow you to finish, please.
Sorry?
Have you finished?
Okay, I'll just repeat that last point then.
Last point, sorry.
Point D, which is the last point, notes the carry forward of commitments as listed in paragraph 2.29, totaling 3.319 million.
Thank you very much. And could I have a second, please?
No? I don't wish to speak on it, Mr. Chairman.
I need a seconder. You second the motion? Yeah, thank you. Are there any questions or contributions from members, please? Councillor Fordham.
Can I ask, Chair, if we were able to ask technical questions to the Finance Officer regarding the report, which has traditionally been the case, rather than speak on the paper as proposed?
I've just been reminded of the point that you only have the one opportunity to question, so...
We can ask questions and then speak on the paper?
You can ask your question, yes, and then... No.
Well, my question to Mr. Kendon is very specific, really. There are a number of flags in the report. I think it's page 9, 2.11, green flags and red flags. And in relation to adult care, the variation at Q4 is 21,127,000. That merits a green flag. So we're overspent in that department by 21 million in that quarter, but that merits a green flag because it is less overspent than previously. My question is really, if you are flagging up with green and red flags, what is a serious issue we should turn our attention to and what is not? Is it correct that an overspend of 21 million gets a green flag and an overspend of, and an underspend of 0.411 gets a green flag as well? Surely 21 million is not something that we tick. It's something that we cross. Shouldn't it be a red flag, or have I misread the report? Have I misread the direction of travel?
Councillor Lawson.
Thank you for the question. So I understand your point, but it's basically just showing the direction of travel is positive because the variance is reducing. I understand what you mean.
It's a technical question, so he is allowed to follow up.
It's not a question and answer.
Sorry, Councillor Fordham, carry on.
Travel. My question is very simply, and I've read the previous 16 quarters, as you know, and I followed these closely. There comes a point at which you have to decide, I think, whether or not we are or are not bankrupt, whether we are or are not trading illegally. If we're giving green flags to a negative direction of travel, how can I be assured, or what judgments do you have in play to tell us that we're not bankrupt? The report suggests we're not, but the figures suggest otherwise.
Councillor Fordham has actually put an officer in a hot seat here, and that's not what this forum is about. If he has some serious questions about the finances of this council, then what he needs to do is he needs to write to him on a separate note and ask these questions so that he has time to think about the answer to those questions and give a proper answer rather than putting him on the spot at this.
Point taken. And Councillor Major, can you make a contribution?
And then it goes on its own. There we go. Just to help out on the last one, I think it depends which table you look at. If you look at the table that shows the full-year outturn, it has a red flag still. But if you look at just the quarter, it's got a green flag. I think that shows that over the year we've got a problem, but actually in the quarter things are looking right. So I think hopefully that helps the situation. I was going to stand up and defend our final record of how we handed over the council to the new administration. But Councillor Lawson, sorry, I was calling you John, sorry. Councillor Lawson, you did a much better job than I could have done. I think it does show that actually, although it is an extraordinarily challenging environment, upper tier authorities that have adult social care responsibilities face, which are demand-led services, which is hard to control how much the provision that you need to take place. It's extremely challenging. But compared to our peers, we are in a decent shape in Derbyshire. And I did hear for the last 2 months from members of college saying things like they've left us a poison chalice and inherited a bankrupt council. This report shows something different. Yes, we'll always say the challenges. We talked about those challenges and we said how difficult it was and why we had to make difficult decisions while we was in administration. But in reality, most of the problems that we had, we have resolved. And I think this quarter report shows that. And I thank Councillor Lawson for pointing that out. I would like to hear, and I may not hear today, but I would like to hear from the administration in the future how they are going to deal with the pressures going forward. We had £80 million pressures in social care when you add children's services and social care together. That would be far more than what you could raise by increasing council tax. And we know you've made promises on freezing council tax or reducing them. So I would like to know how your Doge report is coming along and how you are going to find those efficiencies going forward to protect frontline services and fix all the potholes, while also delivering council tax freeze or reduction and also travelling in the right direction to deal with the pressures we see in adult social care and children's services. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Kinsella.
Thank you, Chair. I really think it's a bit rich for the Conservatives to take credit for balancing the books. You take the opportunity over 8 years to fundamentally address some of the major problems of this council's finances. So you've failed miserably in that. And thank you for that summary, Councillor Lawson.
it doesn't, I mean, I mean, what you said is you've kind of just described what's in the paper. It didn't kind of really add, I didn't kind of get a sense of direction of travel or you adding any value to what's already in the paper. But I'm pleased to see, nevertheless, that the budget position is not as disastrous as expected, and those anticipated savings, 93%, again, you know, that's got to be a good thing. However, my point is, how sustainable is this when the fundamentals haven't been addressed? And I've been pleasantly surprised by reform in terms of, and we heard a member of the public there saying, you know, it's great that the councillors have been out and they've spoken to members of the public, and I too have had access to officers and councillors that I didn't have before, so I welcome that. However, this isn't about inputs, this is about outputs. So while I've had access to officers around Ada Belfield, for example, and access to councillors, and councillors have been very supportive around that, if the outcomes are still the same, i.e. Ada Belfield still has to go into the private sector, that access to councillors and those decisions are still being made doesn't really make a massive degree of difference. And I was disappointed that it was seen as a positive thing that 70% of the council's priorities, targets, had been achieved. If this was any business, and my background is a performance management one, if this was a business and you said 70% of our corporate targets have been achieved, that would be seen largely as a failure, particularly as two of the major areas of concern, adult social care and children's services, the major issue that the Conservatives have failed to tackle in the last 8 years remain unresolved. And even some of the positives that were mentioned in the report, I mean, I think better examples might have been able to be found. So section 2.5, you talk about the bus service improvement plan. And we talk about how that has led to an increase in bus passenger numbers. Well, the bus service improvement plan itself didn't lead to an increase in passengers. In fact, passenger numbers are lower now than they were before the pandemic. So a degree of kind of openness and kind of honesty, I suppose, would not go amiss in terms of this report. And again, under the same item, 57 electric buses have been delivered under the bus service improvement plan. What does that mean, that 57? How do we compare to other local authorities? Well, the answer to that is pretty poorly. You know, 57 is a tiny proportion, a tiny percentage of the bus fleet across the whole of Derbyshire. So using that as a positive and where you've delivered, where success has been delivered, is a kind of a weak argument, really. And I'm particularly interested as well in I'm particularly interested in what reform are going to do around highways and transport. We know that is a major concern for the electorate. And yet there's been an underspend of 7 million there, and it'll be interesting to see how that develops under your policy and your approach in terms of how that's going to be afforded. And I think that actually hits to the heart of some of the problems that we face, is that a lot of these savings are as a result of either recruiting late or not recruiting at all, or not replacing those positions that people have, where people have left the organisation. That's not sustainable. That can't be done year after year after year. So those savings of 93% won't be returned again next year. And if they are, and it's through staffing again, there is a major concern about how do we deliver our services. And I suppose what I would like to hear is something around how, and again, you know, this was something that Reform talked about, and I would like to see how Reform are going to fundamentally address some of the challenges we face. We hear lots of talk about DOGE, we hear lots of talk about efficiencies, of rewriting the way we do business. I mean, we're now in July, next full council will be September. I'm still not clear on the direction of travel of how we're going to avoid this crisis that we're again sleepwalking into. So something on that in this paper would have been helpful. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of other points that I wanted to make as well, but I think they're the fundamental ones. I suppose it's just linking the final point I would make really is linking climate change and reducing and not going out there to reduce greenhouse gases that actually lead to the adverse weather effects. Whether you accept it or not, the international scientific community is saying that. And yet we are trying to put a sticking plaster over our issues around flooding. Our communities have suffered massively over the last couple of years around flooding. And instead of us investing in flood prevention work, instead of us investing in how do we minimise the impact upon communities and maximise that flood prevention work, what we're doing basically is just administering a scheme to pay people for that for the flood resilience grants. So that's taken over a year for a lot of our residents to get those grants. But I haven't seen anything from any of the administrations to say how are we going to prevent flooding rather than just kind of manage it. So,
Councillor Reid.
The questions that Councillor Kinsella is actually mentioning. The title, as we can see on the agenda, is the Performance Budget Monitoring Outrun as of Q4, March 2025. So a lot of what he's raising now wouldn't have gone into that report because we didn't even have the election until May and weren't an administration with cabinet members in place until the 21st of May. So the relevance of that to the actual report and what we're doing right now, as it stands, and what's been presented by the cabinet member, I don't think is relevant to the report.
Point taken. Please continue.
people keep saying point of order. What is the standing order that I'm being challenged on here? I'll defer now. But the points I've made are a challenge to reform to see how in the next year, 2 years, they're going to radically reform this council.
Thank you. Councillor Dale, please.
Thank you, Chair. Broadly welcome the report and thank Councillor Lawson for the recognition of the work done to address, he particularly mentioned it at Cabinet as well, the work done to address some of the challenges by the previous administration, but also by officers, actually, because I think we forget that officers have worked round the clock for the past 2 years, and it was a particularly difficult time this council has been going through. And we are, to quote Councillor Lawson's phrase, we're not out of the woods yet, and the report makes clear that there are very real challenges still within adult social care, children's social care and SEND. And I suppose that's really the purpose of my contribution, really, my question, I suppose. We acknowledge and we look forward to seeing the reform agenda that Reform are going to bring in terms of efficiencies, and always would welcome efficiencies if you can find them and if you can identify areas where we are not being as efficient as we should be. But fundamentally, I don't think that we are going to get through some of these challenges which are not in our control without national reform. The adult social care challenge, the children's social care challenge and the SEND challenge require national reform. We have to get government stepping in, and it's a combination of either significant additional funding for local authorities or it's reform of the systems that we're operating in. And what we don't really have yet is a flavour of how Reform are going to champion Derbyshire on that national stage. Now, we, as an administration, we're perfectly happy to criticise our own government when we didn't think they got things right. And I recall when I came into post as a cabinet member, one of the first things that we did was write to the government about the children's social care challenge. And I'm just sort of keen to understand how Reform are really going to stand up and do that national lobbying piece and challenge the government to try and address some of these issues. Because, efficiencies, very welcome, they're great, fantastic, but I don't fundamentally think you're going to get to the size of efficiencies you need to counteract the challenges that we face in the adult social care, children's social care and SEND arena. So we're just broadly open to any comments on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor George, please.
Thank you very much. Just make sure that that's on. I've already written to the Cabinet member about various issues and some of those I'll raise now. In the report, it details an underspend in highways and transport of 7.32 million, which includes where income exceeded the budget in public and community transport and fleet services. Could I ask the Cabinet member and also for transport to look again at community transport? Because we saw under the last administration that South Derbyshire community transport actually went bust because of the way that their contracts were administered by this council and the way that they were not allowed to be sustainable. Community transport can actually deliver savings to this council in multiple areas. And I would like to ask if the Cabinet Member and the Cabinet Member for Transport would meet with me and with the community transport sector to discuss how that sector can actually contribute to the savings and service improvements that Derbyshire needs in a sustainable way and a positive way towards both our budgets and making sure that we've got good services for the people of Derbyshire. Another issue is the send transport, and that was overspent by £7 million. We had a review last year. I note that the report says that send transport will be reviewed. It was reviewed last year under the previous administration, and at that time decisions were only made on and informed to the companies that were tendering for send transport on the evening before school started in the start of September. It was absolutely chaotic. Those companies were having to ring round their drivers at 9 o'clock at night to let them know that they needed to pick up children the next morning. Many of them didn't have the appropriate DBS certification, so they weren't able to actually start delivering those contracts until much later in the term, leading to many send children not actually having any transport to school at the start of term and missing out on their education and missing out on that vital time to make friends and meet their peers. So please, if we're reviewing send transport, please could we do it in a much better way than it was done last time, but also on my previous point to involve community transport, because they have wheelchair enabled minibuses. They're often able to deliver both adult and send transport with the same driver, with the same vehicle, much more efficiently. And it's one way that you can look to tackle just some of those issues. And you mentioned as well about the overspend in the high needs block, and a lot of that has come from the lack of spending and the delays in spending the capital send budget that was delivered to this council by the previous government, and the delays have meant that we haven't got enough send places at this point in time. Please could the Cabinet Member and the appropriate other Cabinet Members with responsibility also look at the properties and at the send need that is still there. I've got Peak School in my constituency adjacent to the Alderbrook Learning Disability building that is now absolutely empty. Peak School are being told by Property Services that they can't necessarily take over that building, although they've made an offer and expressed interest in it for considerable time now. And it would enable the expansion that school needs, both on the current numbers, which have more than doubled over the last 5 years, but also for the massive interest, almost the size again, of the school, of parents who've expressed an interest in going to that special school. There's been no increase in places for special schools in High Peak, and there's definitely a demand there. I will come to that in another question. So please, if we're looking at buildings and property, don't just look at how much can I get for that property. Look at how much can it integrate with other services within the council. How much can it save us if somebody is using that property that can actually deliver good services much more cheaply for the council. And my final point would be that I noted in a newspaper article from the Cabinet Member that he noted that staff morale is very low. I'd agree with that. It's not surprising. We've had the cuts imposed on this council year on year on year, and very little consultation with frontline staff who often hold the key and the answers to how you can actually run services better and more efficiently. That's what their job is. That's what they're looking to do. And if you can go to those staff members and hold a full consultation, as some county councils have done in recent years, make sure you involve and engage those staff. You'll not only see their morale improved, but you will get and I suspect much better than an outside body coming along and having a look at the accounts. You will get from those staff, your own team, a lot of the answers that you're seeking to run this council more efficiently and effectively. They've not been listened to for many years under different administrations. This has always been a top-down council. We need it to be much more inclusive and involving of those staff and to listen to them because they are the experts in the field. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And with no further questions, I'd call on Councillor Lawson to close the debate, please.
Oh, no, there you go. Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Councillors Kinsella, Major, Dale and George for those very interesting comments and useful comments. I just want to respond firstly to some of those, really by, in terms of this review, this was really a review of as Councillor Major mentioned earlier, of last year, which was obviously under the previous administration. I think he probably mistook my emotions. Really, it was really one of relief, really, that the result came out as it did. And yes, I agree that I agree with Councillor Dale that certainly the officers should be commended for all their hard work in this, particularly this last 12-month period. I think what, like Councillor Kinsella alluded to earlier, we shouldn't forget where the council was in the previous 2 years, and I liken it to a storm, really, a nautical theme, I know, but those previous 2 years must have been horrendous in terms of the running of the council, and we shouldn't forget that the deficit over that 2-year period racked up to something like, I think it was 114 million. So last year, as I say, was very much a relief from my point of view that we didn't experience that continuation of that. I'm sure that the council had difficult times. Certainly, it's, as I mentioned in my report, adult social care and particularly children's services are still areas where we're not only overspending, but we're also failing, I would suggest. So there's still an awful lot of hard work to go. And again, just responding to Councillor Kinsella's comments earlier about what reform, what we're planning to do, nobody, I don't think, on the reform side here, underestimate the challenge that we've got in trying to steady the ship going on with my nautical theme. We're certainly not out of the storm. We're kind of battening down the hatches to a certain extent. That's probably what happened a lot during the last 12 months, I suspect. But we've got to be careful we don't sink, basically. That's a critical issue. And we've certainly got to make sure we deliver those necessary services that all the people of Derbyshire have come to expect from us. We've also got the challenges that we're going to come on to talk about later in terms of local government reorganisation. Lots and lots of other issues. And again, I hear what Councillor Dale and echo what he said earlier about the national issues. Some of these problems can only really be dealt with on a national basis. But unfortunately, we have to work within Derbyshire, and they're our limitations. And so we've got to do what we can do. But certainly, we don't underestimate the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And can we now move to the vote, please? And the motion is carried, and that's been approved. Thank you. Moving on to item 10 is the update on local government reorganisation, and I call on Councillor Graves to move the report, please.
Oh, starting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Right, members of the council, this document is probably one of the most important documents that you will have to vote on during this term of office. Previous councillors will know that in December 2024, the government wrote to all two-tier local government areas in England outlining the requirements for this council, for those councils, including this council, to replace the two-tier system with new unitary authorities. Now, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to simplify the current system and make it a more efficient and effective. Our own residents will benefit from a single point of contact rather than trying to understand whether their issue should be directed to us in the county or to their local district or borough council. That alone makes this exercise worthwhile. Again, previous members of the council will know that the government asked councils to send in their interim plans in February this year to be submitted in March. Final proposals would then need to be submitted by the 28th of November. Also, sharing the criteria will be used to assess these proposals. On the 12th of February, unwisely, under the previous administration, the council approved an unworkable preferred option for LGR in Derbyshire, being one county unitary, excluding Derby City. Unworkable because it would not have been acceptable to government. It was clear that neither the Conservatives nor Labour would gain enough support in the local elections to continue in that vein, exposing a certain arrogance of the previous administration. We have been working hard to restore the feng shui of a more appropriate solution to local government reorganisation. We have also looked at the feedback from the government on our interim plan. The government was very clear that proposals must include a single option and a geographical solution for the whole of the area. They required Derby City and Derbyshire to be included in any solution, not partial coverage. I appreciate that the Conservatives that managed to hang on to their seats are a little upset, so they will probably moan and groan about the wholesale change to their crazy idea. It is therefore right that this council, under our administration and taking account of government feedback, must reconsider our position, paying particular attention to the criteria relating to community identity, efficiency, and the impact of disaggregation of services. As the report outlines, we have looked at 4 broad options on ways which reorganisation can be done in Derbyshire, analysing their merits, and on balance, the priority of community identity has led us to a preference for a 2-unitary model based on a north-south split, as we feel overall this best fits the government's criteria and opportunity to influence the final decision. We believe that this will provide the best balance between A, meeting the needs of the Derbyshire residents for a local council over an area they can best identify with and make most sense, also achieving efficiencies, and C, minimising the risks and costs of desegregation. The council does not need to take a detailed position on a single final model at this stage, and agreeing to options 2 and 3 configurations of a north-south split will allow us time to further explore, analyse and develop our specific preferred option in the coming months. It is critical that we get this right, and therefore I ask the council to agree to undertake and promote public and key stakeholder engagement to seek views about the alternative options to inform our preparation of final proposals. This is essential so that the council can be confident in putting forward a proposal that is in Derbyshire residents and businesses' best interests and what works for them. I would therefore wish to propose the recommendations outlined in the report, and in particular highlight 1, the need to prepare a detailed options appraisal and full business case. 2, the intention to work with other Derbyshire councils and key stakeholders on our options, but also work on our own proposal should we not be in a position to agree a preferred option with the district, boroughs and the city. 3, the wish to submit a single submission as requested by government. And 4, the receipt of government funding to prepare proposals. And 5, the intention to bring a further discussion for council to consider on the final preferred option in time to submit a proposal by the November deadline. I move the recommendations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. And can I have a second, please?
Motion, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions or contributions from members, please? Councillor Gourlay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think many in this room from across Derbyshire would have been surprised when they saw Ashbourne bundled in, ripped out of Derbyshire Dales and bundled into the new Greater Derby area. Now, it's a historic market town and it's surrounded by beautiful rural villages. Obviously, this will raise concerns outside this place amongst the residents. And I just wonder whether the leader of the council raised this option with the councillor for Dovedale and Ashbourne North before it was included in this paper. I'm sure if it had been raised with him, that councillor would have been horrified that the social problems of Derby, of drug addiction, crime and family breakdown would now be supported through the council taxes of his neighbours. Would the leader agree with me that there are a few residents of rural areas or market towns that would want to become part of this Greater Derby area? Will he apologise to the residents of Ashbourne and withdraw that option from this consultation?
Thank you. And Councillor Wheelton, please.
We are turkeys voting for Christmas on this. Our hands are tied. My sympathy is with the leading group, who I am sure do not want this. I hope you agree with Nigel Farage, who has stated publicly he is yet to be convinced the planned shake-up of councils is anything more than taking power away from people at local level. It takes integrity and guts to stand up for what is right. Residents before party, and this is wrong on so many levels. It takes the local out of local government and will be detrimental to left behind rural areas with this urban Labour government power grab started by the Conservatives. Why on earth is there not a recommendation in this report to put out a public statement that our hands are tied? We do not want this. We would prefer to stay as we are, but we are being dragged kicking and screaming to agree to this reorganisation. We as councillors should see the effects of council tax equalisation on our divisions before voting, which will cost many residents more money. South Derbyshire has one of the lowest council tax bases and are likely to see significant council tax increases. The County Council has fired through around 138 million of reserves to support the revenue budget in the February 24 report, more since then. How can it show value for money when in any business this would be maladministration? My sympathy is with the Reform colleagues sorting this out. It needs to be said loudly and publicly, this, like so much else, was not in any manifesto, and we should keep fighting for our residents and staff at both county, boroughs and districts. Imagine coming into work every day knowing your job ceases April 2028. I feel for our hard-working staff. They need our support. As a council, we need to concentrate on what we do best, delivering local service and the council plan. I do know the government will regret this reorganisation and the local chaos it will bring. I hope it is kicked into the long grass when London wake up as the country continues to turn turquoise at every election. This local government reorganisation will leave many rural areas and market towns behind, and it takes the local out of local government.
Thank you. And Councillor Turrell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I share a similar sentiment to some of the councillors here with local government reorganisation. I do not think it's a very good idea. I think it takes away, as Councillor Wheeler has said, a lot of local decision making by taking away these districts. And I think a lot of people, particularly my residents, aren't happy with these changes. However, I do sympathise with our leader in the fact that our hands are really tied by this horrible Labour government, which is kind of telling local people what to do with their own areas. And I do think that there should be a rethink on this, but I do have some key concerns, really. My first concern is about the inclusion of Derby City, with a lot of rural areas being left behind and perhaps neglected for priorities towards the city. My second concern being Swadlincote West councillor and the wider Swadlincote area is unparished. And I do think any deal is made, there must be a town council put in place to keep some local representation alive and local decision making alive, particularly on planning, which I think is incredibly important and must be kept local. So I do hope there are some provisions to protect local planning. But overall, I think we must be really careful about this and make sure that it's, like Councillor Wheeler said, the priority is on the local people and local areas, and they are protected. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Hatchett, please.
Right. Thank you. I'm sort of echoing a lot of what's already been said here, I think, but I will say it. So I think Councillor Graves has been putting a very positive spin on something that nobody probably wants. But on the other hand, we are where we are, and we're probably trying to make the best of it. So I would say, local government is not perfect. It probably does need changing. But we don't think that this reorganisation, which is being demanded by the current government, is devolution, even though that's what they're, I think, trying to gaslight us, is that the phrase, into believing that it is. In reality, it's about taking power away from people and vesting it in a remote authority. The removal of a tier of local councillors makes it harder for any individual councillor to know their local people and to know their local area. It makes it more difficult for a councillor to know their patch of a councillor. We question whether in such challenging times as we've just been talking about under the previous item, the disruption and distraction of this process is really the best way we could be using our time. To be honest, it feels a bit like, you know, the famous rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Well, I would also question whether the 300,000 and a bit pounds that's been set aside, partly by the council for this and partly coming in from the government, could not be spent better. There must be a lot of things that would be a lot better for 300,000 pounds. However, having said that, as I say, the current administration's got no choice but to engage in this, and we really welcome that, and its move away from the donut model that was proposed previously. We also welcome its willingness to engage with the other councils in the county and with the city, and encourage them to make this happen in a way that makes best sense for local residents. We think it's likely that residents will be confused by the fact that the boroughs and the city have already gone out to consultation, and the county will then be coming in with another stakeholder engagement exercise. And I think there's a need to do some explanations with that to residents who are going to be thinking, well, what's going on here? So I would just encourage them to do that. However, we do note that the government has stated its expectation that in the end, local leaders do not put forward competing proposals. We agree that of the 4 options put forward for further development, it's options 2 and 3 that are the most worthwhile. But we are very concerned about option 3, which would see a new boundary introduced, not along county, not along the current building blocks that the government has asked for. And we don't think that this model does reflect community identity and natural affinity. But so to split Derbyshire Dales and Amber Valley with this model is not reflecting the feelings within those two districts. So of the two, we would favour option 2. I know there's a lot of engagement to go ahead, but this is what we see at the moment. So we would favour option 2, but we would favour Amber Valley, particularly being in the north. I can't really speak for Derbyshire Dales, but for Amber Valley to be lumped in with Derby City has no benefits that we can see for Derby, for Amber Valley. We've already heard reference to the market towns and the villages, and Ashbourne being disadvantaged, and I think exactly the same would apply in Amber Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Major, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yet again, on another occasion, what I'd planned to stand up and say, I'm not going to say because others have said it for me. I was going to put the case forward that LGR isn't really what residents want. It's what actually I suspect civil servants to Whitehall actually want, because they don't like talking to 600 councillors, they want to talk to 100. Well pointed out about a greater Derby City. The market towns and historic villages in Derbyshire that surround Derby City are very different in demographic, very different in what needs they require compared to the inner city. Excellent point on the fact of levelling up council tax. This isn't going to save residents money. It is actually going to see their council tax increase when they level up to the highest one in the area. That has been the case on every single local government reorganisation I've looked into. There's also the issue, the complexity of splitting up already extremely complex and stretched services in children's services and adult social care. And absolutely, you put it so well. So I must applaud you. But what I would say to you is, we're going to vote against this as a Conservative group, and you clearly don't want it. So it's time to show your mettle and do the same and say that we don't want to take any part in this. We don't want this. It's not good for our residents. Because if you do, all you're doing really is lying on your backs and allowing a Labour government to tickle your bellies.
Thank you. Councillor Dale, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's probably best to try and start with some agreement with Councillor Graves. I think that there is some benefits out of LGR in terms of reducing the confusion for our residents, in terms of efficiency. There may be some improvements that can be made there. What I really can't understand, though, is why the council is discounting the whole county option, including the city, which is one of the options on the paper, but not Reform's proposed preferred option. Reform talk a lot about efficiency. They strive to be efficient and be as efficient as possible for residents. But surely that strikes me as the most efficient model, because that removes entirely any duplication. You have one set of senior officers, one chief exec, one DAS, one DCS, for example, and that removes some of that duplication that we currently have. So interested in why that option has been discounted. The other benefit to having a whole county with city, and I'm not necessarily a proponent of it, but I'm just going to highlight it, is that you have more of a rural counterbalance to the dominance of Derby City. We know that the county population is 800,000, Derby City's is 300,000. So, as a voting bloc, the rural areas, the more rural parts of Derbyshire will be able to outweigh. So when it comes to the allocation of resources, we're not going to suffer in the other areas outside of Derby City. I'm struggling to understand why we're not going for that option. The greater Derby option, ultimately, we know that the villages around Derby hate the idea. We know that Ashbourne absolutely despises the proposal that's been put forward here and absolutely won't suffer it. And we know, as I say, that there's this fear in those areas around Derby City that ultimately they're going to get only the crumbs from the table when it comes to allocating resources. And the only explanation I can think as to why we've ended up with a greater Derby option that the county council is proposing here And I wonder whether it was a slip of the tongue at the last meeting when the leader referred to being in Derby rather than Derbyshire. But the only explanation I can really think of is that there's a conflict of interest here. We have a long-standing Derby City councillor representing this council, leading this council, and pursuing a Derby-centric model for reorganisation of this authority. There's absolutely no mandate for Reform to propose anything because they weren't honest with the public what they actually thought about Reform before the election. There was no statement as to it. There was no manifesto pledge. There was no statement. And actually, as I understand it, Reform were barred by their central party from saying very much on the matter, which is interesting in itself. And we still don't really know what Reform think because there's nothing referred to that there is in principle support for a two council split, but there's no real, there's no specific reference to which of those two council splits they prefer. So I'd be grateful for a bit of clarity from Reform as to what they're actually proposing. And I was interested really in the comment from Councillor Grays that they want to work with other councils, and I just can't understand why we're having a separate consultation. As Councillor Hatchett suggested, this is just going to create confusion for our residents. Do they respond to the district and boroughs consultation? Do they respond to ours? I think the leader of the council has already capitulated to what the district and boroughs want. So the idea of sort of reserving our right to have take a different view is total nonsense in my view. So the Conservative group will absolutely vote against this motion. And as Councillor Graves said, it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And on that basis, I'll be requesting a recorded vote, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ball, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, in the last week since this paper was published, I don't know if you in Ashbourne North has had the same response as I have, but the people of Ashbourne and the 25 parishes that I actually cover in Ashbourne South are totally and utterly disgusted. There's not a parish in Ashbourne South that has any connection with Derby City. We're nothing to do with the city. Ashbourne has got its own origins, its own history, and 80% away from the town is rural, and they have no contact with Derby City. This is totally against. You know, Chair, what Ashbourne is, and it's certainly not a suburb of Derby moving forward. In 1974, Ashbourne was one of the main towns who set up the Derbyshire Dales, and for the last 51 years they've been part of that, and the residents so far have contacted me, and that's how they want it to stay. I don't know how you're going on in your patch, Chair, but I know how I'm going on in mine, and I will be supporting the residents because the residents don't want no part of being a suburb of Derby City. So I hope, Leader, that you'll take that on board and think of all the residents who live in 52 parishes between us. I'll turn on what result comes from this. So I'm asking, please put Ashbourne back into Derbyshire Dales and not in a suburb of Derby City. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Hart, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I've always been very fond of borough councils. I would be. I was deputy leader for 10 years at Erewash Borough Council and leader for 6 years. And I know a lot of people are concerned about even Derbyshire County Council. They feel it's remote, they haven't got access to it, it's very difficult sometimes to contact people. But working with your borough council, that's how it matters. And if you've got your local councillor, I think the communication is good. But now, of course, there's talk now, if this goes ahead, and it looks as if it's going to be forced on us, whether we like it or not, there's talk that parish councils will still be left as they are. There will be still parish councils. That, of course, is putting a bit of a quandary into Erewash because we've got the big towns of Ilkeston and Long Eaton haven't got town councils. And I know they are very frantically looking at that because they feel that at least will still give them a local voice. But I know that they're not happy with the fact that the mergers are going forward. And I will speak on my ward. I can't compete with Ashbourne and I've only got 6 parishes in my ward, but 4 of those 6 are on the Derby City boundary. And I can tell you they have no wish to be involved in Derby City. They do not feel remotely connected with Derby City. And if you look at all the planning, one of the things they suggest that there's always that gap between the city boundary and going into rural Derbyshire. And I can assure you, I was at a parish council meeting last night, they're most upset. So they are not going to vote. I'm not happy with any of these suggestions. Probably won't be heard, but I can assure you there'll be a lot of people that will be totally against this if we're forced into it, but it's totally wrong. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Ford, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, my ward is a very rural ward, or used to be. I can stand in the high part of my village and see Derby encroaching step by step, closer and closer and closer to where I live. This proposal is going to make that worse, and in fact, it'll probably accelerate the encroachment from Derby City into the rural areas. The leader has a division pretty much similar to mine in the fact that it borders Derby City. The village in where he lives will be swallowed up by this particular change. I'm amazed that the leader, knowing what a mess Derby City is, wants to get this council involved in anything close to Derby City. People I live with, people I work with who travel to Derby, are desperately keen to come out of Derby City. They want nothing at all to do with Derby City and its problems. Obviously not surprised that the South Derby District Council signed up to this. All the Labour districts and boroughs signed up to it when they thought it could increase their power base and get what they wanted, when it was a Conservative idea to keep a whole county unitary, which is what we went into the election for, a better together solution. And we also, in my view, is we're still better together rather than have the north and the south, where obviously those in the south, regardless of whether they live in my division or further down in the south in Swadlincote, or even where Councillor Wilton is in the Walton area, we will all be affected by this. We heard last night, we're in Willington, Matt Benfield was there himself, the parish council chairman was vociferous. He was very, very disappointed with what Reform had done. They thought Reform was going to be a fresh new start. It's actually, in fact, it does appear to be just a continuation of what the Labour government and what the Labour district and council authorities particularly want. Not what we want. It shouldn't be what Councillor Graves wants, being a Derby City member. He knows the mess Derby City are in, and yet he's trying to bring us closer to that mess. It's unbelievable that he's trying to do that. I hope he reconsiders, and I hope his rural members pressurise him to tell him that that's what they don't want either. We don't want to be part of it. I will certainly be supporting all my group in voting against it. Let's see where we go with it. I urge him to try and do whatever he can to try and take Derbyshire and certainly parts of South Derbyshire away from the mess that Derby City are in, because we certainly do not want it, and he's going to get that message stronger and stronger and stronger the closer we get to a final resolution and at a time when we have to make a final decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Snowden, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by saying I agree with a lot of the comments that have been made here about the lack of appetite from our electors, our voters. These proposals are not devolution. There's a con by the Labour government to try and consolidate influence and try and get some savings out of local government. The plans that they've got won't save money. It'll just spend money on a reorganisation that the electorate don't want. It makes democracy less. It moves accountability away from the electorate and centralises influence and control. It's not devolution as we understand it. The Liberal Democrats in Chesterfield, who formed the opposition to the Labour Council there, voted against the proposals brought forward by district and borough councils on the basis that it is not devolution. We were totally against this unwanted reorganisation of local governments. And I was surprised when we voted against the proposals that there was a large group of people in the public gallery who mostly seemed to be supporters of the Reform Party, and they cheered us on when we voted against it. So I was really disappointed to see that you're not putting up more resistance to these changes and pushing against them. In the election campaign, most of us here will have knocked on an awful lot of doors and talked to local residents. I never heard one of them say, oh, what I'd really like is to reorganise local government. There's no appetite for it there. It's a waste of time and a waste of money. And as such, I certainly won't be voting to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Reid, please.
Chair, do you mind if I sit? I've got a sore back and standing up. Is that all right?
Okay.
Thank you. I apologise to everyone. Just want to make a few comments here. First off, to the Leader of the Opposition. Interesting to see the stance change from previously when you were actually in administration and fighting for the arguments for. And I would actually now go back and look at the historical arguments for and against and things. I know it's changed from a one unitary, but you do know fairly well the arguments around the justification and what's actually happening. And by and large, we as a council have the opportunity to either have dictated to us the decision from central government as to what it will look like and not be involved with the process. Or we can actually come to the table and try and guide what the final solution is going to be. You know very well, most people who've read the reports or in councils and other places, that government has said that any solution we choose has to include Derby City. So it has to include us as a whole. I want to be very careful here, and I spoke to people before about seeding language. The one Derbyshire isn't changing as a county in terms of it is still going to be one body. We're not selling off Erewash to Nottinghamshire. We're not selling off Amber Valley or High Peak or whatever else to Manchester. It is still staying in its identity and culture as Derbyshire. There are some very real challenges we are going to have, but as a county council, we need to lead the charge. We need to be at the table where we're saying, what is the best result for residents? Now, as a constituent, I don't know, all of you as a constituent before getting into council, if you've ever tried to contact county council for an issue and get an automated response and then chase with follow-up, you'll know what that is like. And trying to get a response on things in a timely manner doesn't work. Why are we replicating a system as one council across everything with managed services when surely a north-south divide is a better representation as far as local democracy is concerned and representation on local issues? We do need to get the balance right on this. And we're not saying that we've got a band-aid solution that fixes everything, but the prior proposal by the previous administration was seriously flawed. And yes, there are some challenges, especially around rural identity in Derby City. We need to make sure that we are leading that conversation as the county council in any proposals we're putting forward over a two unitary solution. As other members have said, this is not something that we've particularly wanted, but if we opt to oppose, if we opt to stay out of the conversation, then we will have district councils who have no idea what it is to provide the level of services that we do at our level, and central government dictate to us how we work. This is the opportunity for us to actually be involved and actually go, what do we think the best solutions are, using what government has said, this is how you will make it look. How is that going to work from a democratic representation and providing the best value for money services to our constituencies and to Derbyshire, that we can actually move forward and go, right, whether we personally like this or not, we believe that given the criteria, we want to lead with this and say, this is what we feel, given the circumstances, is the best opportunity for Derbyshire. So by all means, oppose it. But I mean, I won't say it's hypocritical because I don't know everything you've gone for, but there are the very grounds on which you're opposing it, regardless the model is different, would be the very same arguments that you would have been arguing for this to go forward in the first place.
A whole county minus city, when I actually referred to having the option, which is in the paper, of a whole county including city. So no, they haven't. No, they haven't. No. They said that they wouldn't accept.
Sorry,
something excluding.
I'm not going to. You're going to have to take this offline, guys.
Correct.
So,
I don't need a public apology. It's incorrect. It's not correct.
Thank you. Can we move on to Councillor Fordham, please?
I think during the election at, I think it was Masson Mills, Councillor Reid, then Mr. Reid, said he thought it was all unnecessary. So now you're in favour of it? No, sorry, my speech.
Sorry, we are just going to have one at a time.
I think we call it a point of order when you just overthought. So let me get this clear. Before the election, it's unnecessary. You win the election and it becomes necessary. I think that's called the delusion of power. I say to you with all respect, you read your own paper, the most important paper this council will consider, Councillor Graves, but it's not a balanced view. Page 161, the benefits of local government reform. Where are the downsides that you believed in but 9 weeks ago? Where are the unnecessary elements of this reform? They're not in the paper. They're not here. Now, I think I will, however, just in the previous council, when we debated this, there was much made about how the Tories were going to fight and die in ditches to defend Derbyshire. A little unaware that the Derby is, in fact, the capital of Derbyshire. We're sitting here in Matlock, a falsely constructed centre for the county. The truth is, Derby is part of Derbyshire. The truth is, in the eyes of people, Derby is our county town. It would be odd not to look at local government reform in the context of the city. But the truth is, this is not local government reform, this is local government reorganisation. We are moving pieces around a board. If you look at Chesterfield, if you look at South Derbyshire, what those councils do provide some access of accountability. Even if we double the number of councillors in this chamber, that means the town of Chesterfield will elect 16 people. Now, I consider myself to be a fairly activist councillor, but I'm pretty rushed off my feet as it is. It is hard, it is difficult to represent all of the people in your division successfully. What I do know at the moment is the 8 of us who are county councillors are supplemented positively by the 40 who also sit on the borough council. That means Chesterfield has at its touch 48 people who are councillors for that borough. 48 people to represent the entire borough, all 80,000 residents. That replicates itself 8 times over across the county. What you are doing in this most important of decisions, in changing your mind, Councillor Reid, is shrinking that power base of who people can contact from several hundreds to but 124, 128. You are effectively saying, actually, this is sufficient for half of the county. I think you're wrong. I think you misunderstand the nature of the word local in local government. This is the government that has taken local government out of the names of the cabinet. This is the government that is trying to take local out of government at all. This is the government that is stripping local government bare of its responsibilities. And if you look at your list of benefits, they are a farce. They are downsides. There will be fewer representatives, a more distant contact point for council, for residents, detached officers sitting in a location that they do not know where or how. It will just be an office somewhere because we're getting rid of this building. Arts and culture, not even mentioned in the list of opportunities. Because you know in your heart of hearts that SEND, adult and children's care sweep all of those budgets away. The reason they are located at district and borough councils is precisely because they have some protection there. By going for this option, you ruin all of that. Close the theatres, shut the museums. That's what you're sweeping away. When you put your hands in the air, all of those positives, what local government can and should do, are ripped out by this government with your assistance. I will not vote for it.
Take it to the So if it is a personal explanation, it's got to be a public. Yes, you can do it.
Okay, I'll take that explanation now.
Just on my prior views and now. So I think it's fair to have a personal explanation. Prior to, you asked my opinion on what LGR was and whether it's necessary. And no, I believe it's not. However, the fact is we have the choice, as I stated, to we either get dictated to on what it will look like, or we can have a seat at the table and decide the outcome. So that is why I'm voting and supporting it. Well, pot calling the kettle.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Burfoot, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say, first of all, that, you know, Reform UK, in control of this council, have got a very difficult job to do here. That's pretty clear to all of us. But I do think it's the Labour government that's got this wrong. They've got lots of things wrong in their time in office, and this is certainly one of them. We've been told that there isn't an option of a no to this. That's the problem that we're faced. There is not an option of no. I think safe to say we can forget the previous administration's offer, if you like, to have a donut effect. That clearly is not going to happen. Apart from you over there, maybe you're the only ones who thought it could ever work. I don't know, but I'm sure the public did not want that. I think I should also say, I just want to point out, I am a member of Derbyshire Dales District Council, and when I think about how things work at the moment for the public, and at the end of the day, we are all public servants, we support, we help our constituents, we are public servants. When I think about how things work at the moment, the difference between the District Council and the County Council, one of the differences is that if you are a member of the public, and I use this analogy quite a lot, and your bin does not get emptied, you phone up the District Council, you phone up Derbyshire Dales District Council, you will get a person on the end of that phone who will sort your bin out. I have done it hundreds of times for people, hundreds of times. I'm afraid if you phone up the County Council, you will not speak to the person who deals with your issue. You have to go through the system. The system that we all have to go through that does not put you in touch immediately, and I know it's a bigger authority and that is going to be more difficult. The bigger the authority gets, the more difficult it is for Mrs. Bloggs to speak to whoever she needs to sort out her problem. And she'll want to go to her local councillor, and there won't be that many of them because they'll be, you know, they'll be looking after hundreds of more constituents. So I feel for those people who are going to be councillors in the future. I would also say that, you know, to their credit, Derbyshire Dales have initiated a consultation, so we are going to be asking people for their views. But this is kind of, it's a done deal to have unitary authorities, and I just hope that we can come up somehow with the best solution for the people of Derbyshire. I would also say that I was somewhat surprised and horrified to see in the report that it talks about, oh, what can we do with Derbyshire Dales? Oh, we've got a problem with Derbyshire Dales. Derbyshire, I can almost hand on heart tell you, Derbyshire Dales, if it was the south part, does not, just like Ashbourne, will not want to go lumped in with Derby City. I can put my hand on heart and tell you that will not be popular. And it cannot happen, surely. Last thing I'm going to say, and another disappointment from this Labour government, is that we seem to have had a directive that says that all councils must operate a cabinet system rather than a committee system. Now, I've never been a fan of the cabinet system, never been a fan of that. But surely the right way to go, and I would hope that reform might push this, is that each council should make their own decision and not have it thrust upon them by a government that I think is out of touch with people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Before we move on, can I just remind members that we need this debate to be conducted in a respectful manner, please. Thank you. And Councillor Smith, please.
Since being elected for Brimington, a lot of people are struggling to figure out who to turn to for each issue. Surely, it being the North Side divide will bring it all together, which, in fairness, I completely agree with, that they will know just to turn to a council. At current, no one knows, is it parish council, is it borough council, is it a Derbyshire County Council problem. But also, one note I would like to quickly make is that Councillor Ed Fordham, says he's for the people active in the area. All you are in my constituency, and all I see is that you are currently always on holiday.
Thank you, Councillor. And with no further speakers, I'm going to call on Councillor Graves to close the debate, please.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to just refer to my notes because I want to make sure I do speak to what everybody's raised. The first one is that Councillor Turrell, he mentioned that about the Labour government bringing this to us and forcing it upon us. I will just remind Council that it was started by the previous Conservative government, not necessarily Labour. Labour are just carrying it on. Yeah. And so when we say this is being forced upon us, it's being forced upon us by Parliament, whoever was in Parliament at that time. And it was initially a Conservative idea. Let's talk about Ashbourne, right? Ashbourne, I agree with you. If you've got residents that are upset about this whole thing, it is your responsibility, councillors. It is Councillor Adams' responsibility to make sure they engage in this process. By saying, I'm not going to vote, I'm not going to have this, all you're doing is throwing your dummies out the pram. That if that's what you want to do, if that's how you want to represent your constituents, that's entirely up to you. And Councillor Gourlay, who talked about a Greater Derby, I find it unbelievable that councillors in this council capitulate to Derby. Why do you feel that Derby is better than you? It's not a Greater Derby. It's not a Greater Derby. It's absolutely not a Greater Derby. There's a bigger area around that, South Derbyshire, Erewash, Amber Valley, you name it, they're all around them. They are the bigger party into this, and you have the opportunity to influence what they say and what they do. Instead of what you're doing is you're saying, I don't want to be part of a Greater Derby. Don't call it a Greater Derby. It's not a Greater Derby. If you do that, you're going to give them the impression that they're in charge. I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. Which then comes on, I come on to the point that you talked about my allegiance. I find that quite unbelievable that what you want to do is talk about how people feel of things. I stood for Derbyshire, and I'm here standing for Derbyshire. Yes, I am a Derby City Council. What that does, that gives me an insight as to how they think, because you have no idea. None of you in this council chamber have any idea, but I do. And I can tell you, the Conservatives in Derby don't want this, just like you don't. But what they do want is they want to leave it as it is. Again, it can't happen. They were in conflict with your previous leader, who said they wanted a whole county with a donut thing. The city Conservatives didn't want that either. All right? So you are actually opposed to each other. At least Reform are all joined together and we all believe in one thing. Yeah, it's true. There was Councillor Turrell also mentioned the parishes and planning issues. I actually think that was a very wise thing to talk about for such a young member of this council, because what we need to do, we need to look after the parishes and we need to look at how planning issues might be resolved, because I know that within the district's planning authority and the city planning authority, the planning applications take an awful long time. Once we become two unitaries, that might be overwhelming, and we need to look at how we can perhaps guide government into making that easier for us. Again, if you engage in the process, what you'll do is you'll be able to add to it rather than try and just score points. Councillor Wielden, she mentioned the council tax increase. Well, you might be right. You actually might be right. But just bear in mind, Councillor Wielden, you'll be part of a council. I'm assuming you want to get re-elected. You'll be part of a council that makes those decisions. It's not government that makes those decisions. It's councils that get elected. And that's how you influence it, just the same as you influence this council about how we apply our precept. Councillor Hatchett, you talked about remote authority. I would just like to remind you that this is a county council and that you already have a patch. And if what you're saying in your speech is that you're struggling to represent it and that you couldn't do it in a unitary authority, which would actually be smaller. So I would like you to think about that. But I do agree with you about the engaging with the other councillors, because we do need to engage with them. Again, the previous authority, the previous administration, didn't engage with them because they had a completely different idea. At least we're on the same track and we can actually engage with them. And bear in mind that they've all said, apart from previously from this council, have said that they wanted a two unitary option. I've already mentioned, well, I've already answered Councillor Major's point. You'll have to excuse me while I reread. No, I've done that one. I've done Ashbourne. Right, Councillor Hart, you mentioned about being focused, forced on us. Yes, it is forced on us. But as I said before, it was forced on us by the previous government and now this government. All I can say to members of this chamber is we can either engage with the process and you can engage in the decision-making that we make, or you can say, no, I'm not going to do it, sod off. And if that's what you want to do, that's entirely up to you. That's your choice. I don't want it any more than anybody else wants it. I was quite happy to carry on as we are, but LGR will come and we can either go with it or we can fight against it. Councillor Fordham, I just found that your contribution was, you seem to be trying to argue for support for the Liberal Democrats, unfortunately. I mean, you talked about Chesterfield and you talked about that area. I think what you're frightened of is that the Liberal Democrats will be sidelined in both authorities. I think that's what your main concern is. And I also believe, because you talked about a reduction of politicians, I actually think that's one of the positives. I mean, you talk to people on the street, if you have spoken to people on the street, they want less politicians, not more. I can assure you of that. There'll be fewer of them as well. Absolutely, there'll be fewer of them, and we should all welcome that. Councillor Burfoot, I did have actually some sympathy with your views. I thought your views were quite well balanced. I actually do agree with you about the committee system. I wish we could have one. I'd been fighting for one in Derby City for many, many years, but unfortunately, we aren't the biggest party in Derby City. We are one of the smaller parties, and so we couldn't actually achieve that. Unfortunately, the rules are, as you said, again, it's being forced upon us. And Councillor Smith, you talked about bringing everybody together. I agree with you. I think this council should be a one-stop shop. The new unitaries will be a one-stop shop for the residents, because what a lot of people are missing out in their speeches, they're talking from a political perspective, is how it affects the residents. At the moment, they have, I mean, for instance, in my division, there's me in Aston, and then there's 3 district councillors. That's 4 councillors they've got to report to. And they don't know what I can do and what they can do. And that's a fact. I mean, I know the parishes might know the distinction, but the actual residents that voted for us don't. So I actually think a one-stop shop is better. Again, I've got experience of a unitary authority. I've been a member of a unitary authority for a long time, and it actually really does work. So, Mr. Chairman, I move the recommendations as printed.
Thank you, Councillor. We're going to move to the vote. Councillor Dale has asked for a recorded vote. The Constitution requires 5 members to stand to enable a recorded vote to take place. I can say I have at least 5 members. Are there any further?
That's fine.
Thank you.
So, over to Alec to hand over to the head of democracy.
So, for the vote, then, when I call your name, please state either for, against, or abstain. Councillor Abbott. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Barnes. Councillor Benfield. Councillor Bent. Councillor Bradley. Councillor Bromley. Councillor Brown. Councillor Bull. Councillor Burfoot. Councillor Chambers. Councillor Clark. Councillor Cliff. Councillor Dale. Councillor Elsdon. Councillor Ford. Councillor Fordham. Councillor Gates. Councillor George, Councillor Gourlay, Councillor Graves, Councillor Greenhalgh, Councillor Hallett, Councillor Harper, Councillor Hart, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Hatchett, Councillor Hatfield, Councillor Hill, Councillor Hobson, Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Hunter, Councillor Isherwood, Councillor Kinsella, Councillor Lawson, Councillor Mabbott, Councillor McGuinness, Councillor Major, Councillor Matthews, Councillor Millwood, Councillor Monkman, Councillor Mertzler, apologies if that's... Councillor Oxbury, Councillor Parkin, Councillor Price, Councillor Robert Reaney, Councillor Sarah Reaney, Councillor Redfern, Councillor Reid, Councillor Melandra Smith, Councillor Richard Smith, Councillor Snowden, Councillor Somerville, Councillor Sutton, Councillor Turrell, Councillor Wheelton, Councillor Whitbread, Councillor Wood. The motion has passed, Chair.
Thank you very much. That's been approved. And now moving on to item 11, changes to committee memberships. Councillor Abbott to move the report, please. Councillor Abbott. Councillor Abbott, can you move the report on the changes to committee memberships, please?
Report.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Graves, second.
To you.
Are there any questions or contributions from members, please? No contribution, so let's move to the vote. That's carried. Now I'm about to move on to elected member questions. It is 4:30. It's probably unlikely we're going to get these done in half an hour. We'll see, but if we get to 5 o'clock, we'll need to move for an extension. So starting with question 1 from Councillor Fordham to Councillor Abbott, we've got question and answer there. Does Councillor Fordham, do you have a supplementary question, please?
Just to say, could I thank Councillor Abbott for the answer? To thank Councillor Abbott for the answer. I'm delighted to take the opportunity to meet with her. Could I, in the principle of Buxton, include Transition Chesterfield in that meeting as well, because they are keen to take this forward in a proactive way as well?
I thank Councillor Fordham for his question. And as you know, we've already have a library of things in Buxton. But I would be very happy to have conversations with Councillor Fordham about advancing to Chesterfield if we have the benefits of our residents and assistance of community support. And I'm very happy to meet with Councillor Fordham to discuss this.
Thank you. Question 2 from Councillor Fordham. Do you have a supplementary question, please?
Yes, Chair. I read the answer from Councillor Wood regarding the transition, or the movement rather, of the hub to the Canal Trust. I'm slightly concerned when looking into the detail of the Canal Trust to find out that the signing of this took place at on the very last day, I think the 30th of April, before the elections. I wonder if the dialogue with the Canal Trust could be more open and more transparent and take place with more time and notice. I really think it was unreasonable that the closure of the Tapton Lock and the signing of it as a possible activity hub for the Canal Trust took place so late in the cycle during PERDA. And I really would urge that we have a more open and transparent dialogue with the Canal Trust going forwards.
Councillor Wood, please.
Thank you, Councillor Fordham, for your observation. And of course, we have membership on the Canal Trust body. As stated, we are supportive of the Trust, hopefully moving forward to continue the asset of the Tapton Lock shop centre. So I'm sure that will be taken into account and will have my support. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 4 is from Councillor Fordham. Do you have a supplementary question, please?
I do, Chair. In relation to the answer from Councillor Hill, it says the proposed removal of 2 footbridges and the subsequent closure of footpath is in a very early stage. Can I ask her to reconsider this? When an area floods, people ditch their cars, and footbridges are the very means by which you escape. The residents, myself and other councillors have long resisted the proposed removal of these 2 footbridges. Can I ask her to reconsider the very early stages of support for removing these footbridges? And if anything, you need to enhance the footbridges in order to give people precisely the means by which they can escape when the roads are flooded, as is often the case with Spittal and in Calo.
Councillor Hill, please.
I think that the answer states that Derbyshire's flood management team have the data on this and that they have been working on this already, Councillor Fordham. So I'll continue to work with the officers.
Question 4 from Councillor Fordham. A supplementary question, please.
Yes, Chair. I'm aware that I've named 4 slightly parochial, as it were, streets. The reason I name them is because they've been on the list to be reviewed and inspected and recovered for nearly 6 years now. During the election, the portfolio holder from the previous administration and the head of highways came out to inspect them. They all agreed they were in need of being resurfaced. We have an underspend of £7 million. I don't quite understand what further is needed, more than the head of highways, the then portfolio holder, and an underspend, so the money is there. Will continue to be monitored. Brooklyn Drive, I think it was 157 potholes we counted within it. We repainted the white lines ourselves. What more do the residents need to do to get these areas resurfaced?
Councillor Hill.
The programme that we're currently dealing with is that programme of the previous administration's working with the officers as well as. So it's not anything that we've had any influence over currently, Councillor Fordham. But also, I personally do not think that the full council meeting is the opportunity to raise individual problems with our highways department. As I've worked with many different members from all parties, my inbox is very open and you can raise these directly with me and I'll work with you and the officers to rectify this.
Thank you. Question 5 from Councillor Gourlay. Do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Hill, please?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Hill for her answer to my question. We have been trying to sort out a site visit, but our diaries haven't worked out just yet. My supplementary question is, before she makes that decision, will she come for a site visit with me to Bamford Clough? Bamford Clough is... when it opens, it will be the steepest and most dangerous road in England.
Councillor Hill, please.
Thank you. As spoken about previously, Councillor, I'm more than open to coming and having a site visit with you and also bringing along the relative officers as well. So yeah, thank you. We'll definitely do that with you.
Thank you. Question 6 from Councillor Snowden. Do you have a supplementary, please?
Chair, I do.
Oh, sorry, mic on, please.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Redfern for the answer and the clarification that was given. The supplementary question I'd like to ask is that, given the size of the Council's adult and children's care expenditure that we've already discussed today under item 9, and previous overspends, will the Council commit to conducting a detailed review of care home costs and charges to ensure that the residents of Derbyshire get the best possible value for money when paying for care home places, both in-house and privately run? Thank you.
Councillor Redfern, please.
Thank you, Councillor Snowden, for your question. It's something we are looking at in the future, the efficiency and the strategy going forward of how we're going to improve that with the council and the placement of children. So yeah, I don't really want to add a lot more to that at the moment, but it is something we're looking into at the moment, the strategy going forward with children and how we place them.
Thank you. Question 7 from Councillor Hobson. Do you have a supplementary question, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Graves, you're already aware of the concerns of Ashbourne residents about becoming a suburb of Derby. Do you agree that their voices and those of the rest of Derbyshire should be heard at every stage of the process? And will you agree to directly engage with parish and town councillors, acknowledging their vitally important roles as the first tier of local government? Thank you.
Councillor Graves.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Councillor Hobson. You do bear in mind that there are many, many parishes within Derbyshire. To agree to directly engage with all of them would be quite a mammoth task. The reason that you're a county councillor is that you are that conduit between the parish councils and this council, and I do expect you to engage with it, and I do expect all your members to engage in it, as I do with our members. So yes, we will engage, but I'm relying on you to engage with us.
Thank you. Question 8 is from Councillor Kinsella. Do you have a supplementary question, please?
I do. Councillor Graves has responded to me in respect of why the council, for the first time since 2014, didn't mark International Day against homophobia, biphobia and transphobia. And he said the reason why the flag wasn't flown was because flag flying was to focus on national, civic and ceremonial events only. So how will the council mark this event, as they have in the last 10 years, for 2026?
Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Councillor Kinsella. It's interesting that you recap the question so that people out there can actually see it, so they don't have to read it themselves. That's an interesting tactic. As the answer actually says, we already engaged this year, and we will engage exactly the same next year. Thank you.
Question 9 from Councillor Kinsella. Do you have a supplementary question, please?
Yes. Yes. So again, it's the issue relating to Ada Belfield, and thank you for your response to that. Yeah, my question really is, how is it that it can be effectively run by, Ada Belfield will be effectively run by the private sector when it is currently effectively run by the council, and how will the council mitigate the additional revenue costs that they will face through the top-up fees and additional revenue charges? And how will they make sure that people, not current residents of Ada Belfield, but future residents of Ada Belfield, aren't paying more for the service, with the council dropping out of this market and therefore pushing prices up across the care market?
Councillor Barnes, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kinsella.
we recognise the importance of maintaining high standards of care, particularly for the residents with complex needs. Now, our providers must go through rigorous, scrutiny first. First of all, they must be of good standing, good finances, and a good track record as well. Okay, the council will be monitoring them as part of transition. The residents will not have increased fees as part of the contracts, and the staff as well will be looking at moving over as previously consulted with yourself. Thank you.
Question 10.
I'm happy to respond.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've got two different papers. Sorry, Councillor Clark.
Parliamentary, yes. I understand that the savings programme agreed at the beginning of this year by the council was in part predicted on remote working. So can I ask how much the new policy would cost and the impact on the finances of the council? And also, as Councillor Lawson has stated publicly that he's concerned about low staff morale and productivity, I was disappointed to read in your written answer that you stated there will be a minority of staff who may be resistant to this change and may not have what you feel is a genuine case to work from home. And to those staff members, I would ask them to reflect on whether DCC is the right place for them to work. I ask how you believe that would affect staff morale.
Well, I get your point. What I think we need to do is adults in this room. We can't wrap everybody in cotton wool. We, as a council, have a budget to manage, and we're not operating within our means. We're ultimately accountable, as I said at the end, to the public for providing services. Public look at us, and perception is reality for the public, or 9/10 of perception is reality. None of the public that I've engaged with on the doorstep think that a minimum of 1 day a week working in the office is providing value for money, is effective, or providing the value that they expect. We have a duty and accountability to the public to provide those services. And I think that balance is better served minimum 3 days a week. If there is genuine needs, like I said, we have a requirement under the law, and we are a supportive employer. Where we need to make reasonable adjustments, the council will do that. And we will support those valuable workers. However, some of the examples I've actually given for why, then it's anecdotes that have been heard around the place and I've heard elsewhere as well. I've got a new puppy, I can't come into the office, or I sold my car in COVID and I can't travel into the office. They aren't valid reasons for reasonable adjustments. And then if that is that will be a minority case, not for all, because the majority of staff already work within council, then that is a valid question that people need to ask themselves, is this still the right working environment for me? Because I don't want to do that. Our ultimate responsibility is to provide value to our constituents. And we believe that it's best served setting the minimum requirement as 3 days a week and adjusting where accordingly, rather than setting that at 1 day a week and adjusting up as accordingly. So I hope that is at least sufficient an answer. The cost, I don't have any figures on that at present, but I can get back to you in future date.
Thank you, Councillor. Question 11 from Councillor McGuinness to Councillor Graves. Have you a supplementary question, please?
Yeah, so as a newly elected councillor, I'd be interested to know what the new administration's views are on the EDI training. And I'd also be interested to know what the administration's views are on the widespread practice of social workers affirming the gender of looked after children, including very young primary school age children. So does the new administration have any plans to change the EDI training and investigate whether or not DCC social workers are in fact affirming the gender of primary school age looked after children?
Councillor Graves.
Mr. Chairman, that doesn't relate to the original question, I'm afraid.
I was wondering myself where it had come from. Yes, question 12 from Councillor Hart to Councillor Graves. Do you have a supplementary question, please?
I have, Chairman, thank you. Yeah, I'm very, very pleased that you're going to carry on with signing of the memorandum. That is really good news. Just to mention I think that this came about because of the hospitality and the warmth of Derbyshire residents looking after our Ukrainian friends when they were fleeing the war. I would like to commend our community safety team who actually ran the grant scheme and are still running it. They've done a fantastic job. And for those that don't know, I mean, we had 1,700 referrals into Derbyshire. And we are one of the highest guest populations and one of the highest heads of populations for welcoming the Ukrainians into Derbyshire. I think it's been really, really successful. What I would say is that the leader and I, as the appropriate cabinet member, were arranging a meeting with the Ukrainian host families that still are hosting. We've still got 260 actually still hosting, and some absolutely fantastic long-standing friendships will never be forgotten now for all the help that they've received. But we were in the process of organising a meeting with some of the host families and some of the Ukrainian friends and guests. And I wondered if that could still perhaps go forward, because I think it just gives you an idea of what they're trying to put back into society and into Derbyshire to pay us back really for the help that we've given them. And I think it would be really rewarding for you to have that meeting. Plus the fact it still highlight one or two things that can be ironed out as well to help them. And I'd love to be involved in that if you do go forward with that. And I think when you've spoken to them and how much they appreciate Derbyshire and what we've done for them, it might even make you change your mind about flying the Ukrainian flag. Thank you.
Councillor Graves, I think there might have been a question.
One question in that.
Right.
However, it doesn't allow me to respond to it. I am quite fortunate that the Ukrainian Centre is actually within my division. A very big piece of land run by the Ukrainians. And I'm very proud to have attended the memorial services at there when I was the mayor of the city of Derby. So I have a very close connection with the Ukrainians. I've helped some Ukrainians in casework, so I'm very proud of that. And so thank you very much for allowing me to raise that as an issue and inform the council that I'm fully engaged with the Ukrainian society. If I do get any invites, I will certainly consider inviting you along.
Thank you. Question 13 from Councillor Dale. Do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Bradley, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you to Councillor Bradley for the response to the question. It's pleasing to know that there'll be a consultation on most of the centres before any decisions are made. I was going to ask whether, in your role as Cabinet Member, whether there'll be any lobbying of the government around this issue, because it is disappointing that the adult education budget has been cut, and that's part of the reason why these difficult decisions are being taken. And as a sort of second question, if you'll permit me, Chair, will we look at, in terms of the mitigations, there are also potentially opportunities here. We could potentially get more adult education into more communities, making it more accessible, using things like village halls. We don't always have to have buildings per se, so whether that will be looked at as part of the consultation as well. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bradley, please.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Dale. I'll go for the second one first. We are doing a lot of work around the transformation of the adult education programme. So a lot of that will be looking at using assets we have available to us already. So that it may be libraries or town halls that we could use to provide training from those places, which increases the amount of places we can offer and also reduce the cost of actually delivering those courses. On the first part, a lot of the funding actually comes now through MCA. So it will be lobbying MCA to provide more funding. So that is something that we're going to be looking at. Hope that answers your question.
Question 14 from Councillor George. Do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Bradley, please?
Thank you. On question 14, I asked about the deficiency in school places, and I'd be grateful for the numbers on that, please. I'd be very happy to receive that as a written response, as the numbers for each area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bradley.
I can provide those after this.
Question 15, also from Councillor George. Do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Reid, please?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the detail within the response that you gave. I absolutely accept that not all of it is available at the moment, and I look forward to receiving that information as it's produced. Please, could I ask the Cabinet Member, particularly for social care, to look again at the 3-shift system which is imposed on all staff, including bank staff, in the Council's own care homes. It makes those jobs impossible for most local people who are seeking work to actually work for Derbyshire within our own care homes. Ordinary people can't do rotating earlies, lates and night shifts. It's not practical. When that was brought in, then it led to a massive loss in our own staff and is leading to a burden on our care homes. Lots of agency workers having to be employed, many from overseas, and still vacancies. So that would be really helpful. I'd be most happy to meet with either of the Cabinet members regarding that issue.
Sorry, your question originally was to Councillor Reid, but we have got time if you'd both like to respond to an answer. Thank you.
So, sorry, Councillor George, it might be my thickness or my antipodeanness, but I'm wanting to clarify what the specific question for my thing was. I'm happy to discuss this out of chamber, but I just want to clarify what, if there was a specific question, I can answer there.
The question was to ask whether you would review the use of the 3-shift system within Derbyshire County Council's care homes, which is leading to a lack of local staff being able to apply for those jobs and an over-reliance on care, on agency staff, many on overseas care visas.
Okay, I would put that to the relevant Cabinet member as the right person to actually look at that. So let's take that out of this chamber and let's have a conversation in more depth.
Lovely. Thank you for that, councillors. Item 13 is notice of motion. There are none today. So now time to declare the meeting closed, but I'd just like to thank you all for attending and realise it's been a contentious issue, and thank you for conducting it largely with respect and to each other. So please have a safe journey home, enjoy the summer, and we'll see you.